The night train pierces the gloomy darkness, as if trying to hide the secrets lurking inside. In the narrow corridor between the cars, the curtains are drawn tightly over the compartment where the strange event is taking place. My curious gaze is fixed on the place, as if unconsciously eager to unravel the mystery that is playing out inside. The noise and hum of the train floats in my ears, creating an atmosphere of anticipation. What is going on in there? Who is hiding behind those closed doors? I can't resist, my hand reaches for the handle, and I venture into this grim scene where the dramas of fate unfold in the heart of the train. Brace yourselves, for the story from the train compartment, full of mystery and mystery, is just beginning. The story happened in 1988, when I was 9 years old. We lived in Baranovichi, vacations began, and in early June, my mother put me on the train Brest-Irkutsk. It was almost 3 days' trip to Novosibirsk, where my grandparents lived. Nowadays, it is probably unlikely that the law allows a child to travel such a long distance unaccompanied by an adult. However, in Soviet times, there were no problems with this, and from the age of 8, I was already traveling on my own. A nice-looking, intelligent mother and her son, who was a year younger than me, were in the compartment as well. A few hours later, a man of about 35 joined us. Strangely enough, even after all these years, I remember him clearly. He had a mustache, a slightly overweight face, a slight paunch, and was of medium height. In general, an ordinary man, not handsome, but also unattractive. Rather, we all got to know each other. The woman's husband was a military man. She worked as a school teacher herself, and they were going as far away as Novosibirsk. I don't remember what the man said about himself. He was also going somewhere outside Novosibirsk. With the boy, we quickly became friends. The woman was sociable and friendly. Man, that was still the mountains. It seems, and 5 minutes did not pass without another joke in the Bosca. All in all, ideal company for such a long trip. On the second day of the trip, I noticed that the man began to woo her. He takes her aside, gives her a friendly hug during one of her jokes. At the station, he bought something tasty, and the children also had something to eat. In the evening, the table was full of fruit and sweets. There was a bottle of champagne. My boy and I went to sleep on the top shelves, and they cooed downstairs for a long time yet. On the third day, the boy became visibly sour. He reacted to the man's joke without a smile, and when his mother went to the bathroom, he said to him, "Isn't your wife jealous of you?" This day went in the same way as the previous day, the only difference being that the woman was already reacting to his touch with visible pleasure. The last night of my trip came. Tomorrow, early in the morning, my grandfather would meet me at the Pirog. In the afternoon, I would already be running around with my many friends I hadn't seen in 9 months. In general, in anticipation of all this, I hardly slept, but just lay still, with nothing to do, trying through the noise of the wheels to hear the conversations below. It was lightning outside the window, that is, it was already 4 in the morning. The dialogue was interrupted, some rustling sounds, then her voice, with the words no, no, don't, and his voiced hush, hush, hush. Then the rustling sounds again, and then the rhythmic sounds began. It didn't last more than 2 minutes. I froze, in some kind of complete shock, through the flicking of my eyes, looking at the sleeping boy. They were making love right under his bed. In his head, how could such an intelligent woman cheat in such a short period of acquaintance, and still 1.5 meters away from his son? Well, yes, what can I hide? And the excitement in me was wild from these sounds, from the fact that I became the owner of the forbidden secret, too, and that everything happens so close. Just stretch your hand. Half an hour later, I pretended to wake up. Pulling my sleep mask over my face, I climbed down to go to the bathroom. They sat across from each other in silence on separate beds. She had a sort of, sad detached face. Maybe she was sorry for what she had done, or maybe she was just in shock herself. In a couple of hours I was to leave, and all the time they were silent. At the Novosibirsk station, we said goodbye in a way. It was obvious that they wanted me to leave quickly. We couldn't say goodbye to her son. He was still asleep. Such a story, and for an appetizer, I will tell you another one. It's much like the last one, only it ended innocuously. A year later, same train, only I was returning home from Novosibirsk. In the compartment was a slightly overweight, not particularly beautiful woman. By the way, she had a military husband, like in the first story, when also her daughter my age, and an alcoholic. You should have seen how much he drank. Not getting sober from morning till night, a bottle was replaced by a bottle. Vodka, wine, beer, champagne came in. When he ran out of everything, either at the stations or with the conductors, he managed to get a new one. My girl and I even threw some junk into an empty bottle of champagne the next morning, hoping he wouldn't drink it. But he didn't. He woke up and drank it all in one fell swoop, so he didn't notice. And he groped my mother occasionally, rudely and unceremoniously. She didn't like it and made remarks, which was the most surprising thing. On the second day, she not only stopped resisting, but began to flirt at the stations when they went out to stretch. She was sideways and sideways to him so he could grope her. On the evening of the second day, he finally left us. Amazing. Okay, the first story was a neat seducer temptress with a sense of humor, but the second story was rude, stinking of booze, red as a cancer of half-witnessed vodka, and was able to interest a married woman quite quickly. Maybe she sorely lacked attention and affection from her husband, since she was even attracted to such coarse signs of attention. Your opinion, please write in the comments. Very interesting to hear. And now on to the second story. Silence reigns in the house as if a prelude to something irreversible. I came home earlier than usual, expecting a calm and warm welcome. But what I saw in the bedroom made my heart swoon for a moment. There, in the arms of another man, lay my wife, as if betrayal had enveloped us both in its cold veil. Shock and helplessness overwhelmed me, but I mustered all my strength and walked into the room, looking them in the eye. What did I say? What did they say? Prepare to hear and know the truth, for the story of the drama of cheating on my wife is just beginning. At the age of 24, I met my future wife through the internet. At that time, I lived in a miserable rented apartment, ate dumplings, there was no TV, and from the entertainment was only the old computer. I worked in a factory, yes, on a machine. For 10,000, you understand, I did not luxuriate in it, and I drank a lot because I was lonely. I met her on a dating site. After a few days, we hooked up, and somehow she came to stay with me. I was shocked myself. How a girl would want to live in such a hovel. And then it was like a breakthrough for me. Apparently, some unknown strength or responsibility appeared, but I began to go uphill. A year and a half became a simple worker course chief with a salary of 100 to 120 kilograms. In another 6 months, I got my own project, which brought another as much. I worked from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., with no holidays for 3 years. I bought an apartment and an expensive foreign car. Proposal, honeymoon in Egypt on New Year's Eve, as there was no other time, no vacation. She never worked anywhere. Somehow she didn't have to, and I didn't see the point. Our town was poor. The maximum she could earn was 5,000 to 6,000 rubles. My money was more than enough for everything. I did not limit myself in anything. But with my work, I did not notice much. My daily routine was like this. Waking up at 6 a.m., leaving at 6:40, arriving at 7 p.m. Tired, a beer, repentance, TV, and sleep. And so without days off. Sometimes cafes, restaurants, cinema, but the more time passed, the less energy I had. I was really tired, like a dog, and the quarrels began. The reason is that the man stopped understanding that I was tired and could not hang out all night, be affectionate every day, and so on. My mom, a great woman, and at the time couldn't believe that her son used to be a complete Humpty Dumpty, could make that kind of money. So my mother tried to open my eyes by constantly telling me that I didn't notice anything, that I was walking around in unshrunk clothes, that I smelled like sweat, that my stomach ulcer that I almost died from was not because of nerves, but because of poor nutrition. Realistically, as I recall, I ate horns and convenience foods for days, but I didn't listen. And here was the beginning of hell. Scandals every day. Due to chronic lack of sleep, because she did not let me sleep, I was hooked on energy drinks every morning to work somehow. I stopped wanting sex because I had no energy. Tried to talk that the situation is terrible, did not help, but tolerated, apparently loved. Wanted children, but apparently my brain understood that it is not worth it. And thank God he did. Repenting raised his hand a couple of times. The situation was further described by my mother. Her acquaintances had already started telling her that her son was turning into a zombie, his eye twitches, he was angry at work, and so on. So she decided to visit for the first time. From that fog of my life, I remember her tears. She saw a completely cluttered apartment with expensive renovations, unused clothes, and a shitty kitchen. Apparently, I didn't notice that. I wasn't home that night. There was a scuffle with me, but I sided with my wife again, and so it was X day. In the evening, I find someone else's men's underpants in my house. To say that I almost died is not to say anything. What happened next I hardly remember. There was shouting. I kicked out of the house. I think I took a bottle of cognac, drank it. Then I went to the pharmacy, took 2 packages of phenazepam. How they sold it, I do not know. I decided, apparently, to die and drank them. I don't know why either. I didn't understand it myself. It just seemed at that moment that it was the best way out of the situation. Thank God I managed to call my parents and say something inadequate. They came to me, found me in a puddle of vomit with my head bashed in. I must have fallen and hit the tub. The next 6 months I don't remember at all. I lived with my parents, where they took me. My younger sister still says she never saw me like that. Once I worked, I lost 21 kilos and I weighed 61 at 185. There were IVs to clear the blood from the pills. How they didn't send me to a mental hospital, I don't know. My mom says I didn't start watching TV till 2 months after my arrival. Before that, I was either lying, staring at the ceiling, or running somewhere in the evenings. Turns out I was running to my now ex-wife. My parents had somehow divorced us. I don't really remember being in Zach's. I was on my knees, begging for forgiveness for who the fuck knows what, standing in a puddle outside her parents' driveway. In short, creepy. My parents were really pathetic. So, what do we have in the end? It's been a year. I did not by some miracle lose my job. All this time, I was automatically carrying money to my mom, and I brought in about $3 million during this time. And it turns out I had a lot of debts in the beginning. How the fuck do you know? I'm still on antidepressants, because I dream about those panties every day. Lost all my friends. I got sociophobia. I don't go out on the street because I'm still afraid to run to my ex. My parents, seeing all this, stopped talking to me. That's too bad. I tried to get acquainted with girls. It did not work out. I hate them all. I tried to live alone. Doesn't work because I'm afraid of being alone. The day with a bump in the road, in short. And how to get out of it, I do not know. I'm a big boss, tough at work, but when I get out of the factory, I'm scared of everything. I don't know what it is. Conclusion. Men, don't trust women, don't relax them, and don't love them. They can't give you anything but intimacy. As they write on the anti-women, only a demo and a hole on their eyes. They all betray. The withdrawal will be such that you can lose everything. I know, I'm a weak man. I used to be a wuss, and I'm a weak man now too, because I can see them torturing my family with my behavior. But I can't leave them, because it's definitely on automatic losing my job. Probably. And it is unlikely that I will get such a chance in life again. I live now only for her. Maybe my money will help my parents. My ex never worked anywhere. She tries to call me from time to time. Anyway, sorry for the confusion. I'm just really sick of everything. Sometimes thoughts of suicide come over me to end it all. Because in a year, there's no change except a lot of dough. You say you need to pull yourself together and move on to find the one, the only one. Kind of not. Recently, just a couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a guy at my job, and what I heard just made my hair go up in smoke. I definitely don't want a relationship after that. I'll give you the first-person account of his story. I tell my wife that I will go to the country house on the 30th. Well, to make a dacha for the holidays. Shashlik, mashlik. I took a TV set and a music center. I took the refrigerator to the dacha and cleaned it up after the winter. I said I would come the second evening. Besides, it's a woman's day at work, so I drove over. My mother-in-law dropped off my 5-year-old daughter. Didn't make it. The engine stalled, and no matter how I tried to start it, nothing. They dragged me, put the old man's car at home. I think I will call a friend in the morning to drive the car to the service. Waiting for my wife. It's 10:00 p.m. No. 11:00 p.m. No. I call. The subscriber is unavailable. 2400. No. 40 minutes past 1. Well, I think I'll go smoke on the loggia and go straight to the banya. Just lit up, I hear the door open, and the house is dark. I turned off the light everywhere. My wife showed up. I was about to go into the hallway to meet her, and then I hear that she is not alone. I went back to the loggia, not straight from the corridors to the bedroom. On the way, only my clothes flew in different directions. I don't know how I could stand it. I waited until they settled in the bedroom. Well, when my wife began to groan and wail in a voice, I went quietly. I went in and said in a voice, "Should I hold the candle, or will you take the third?" The wife threw the man out of herself and off the bed, and immediately I'm sorry. I do not know how it happened. I drank a lot. And her most intimate phrase, there was practically nothing. He did not even have time to come. I said, maybe I should have waited until he made our bed dirty. While I was arguing with my wife, the man took off in silence. All night long, she walked from bedroom to hall to me. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I only love you. I'm sorry." In the morning, I couldn't stand it. Sent me a letter inside, shouted, "Go away, get lost, so to speak," in profanity. And before, even in front of other women, did not swear. Almost, slips out there casually. At 11 a.m., I get a call from her friend. Svetka. It was her birthday, she asks. "Andre, my brother delivered your wife safely home yesterday." And I got some nervous laughter. I said, "So it was your brother was?" I don't know Svetka very well. I didn't know she had a younger brother. I said, I laughed and tied a pink ribbon around it. She probably didn't know what happened. The brother didn't tell. The guy's 18 years old in June or July. Wife is 27. I love my wife, but there's an emptiness inside. To be now as a daughter, family, divorce, unequivocally divorce. Once was for sure, and the second will be only fully conspiratorial. Yes, and probably should have started the first Rogozhin give on holidays. For poison, flowers, rings, chains, and not on holidays too, out of nothing to do. There is a flower stall near our house at the bus stop. I used to drop by and pick up a bouquet. Sometimes a good bottle of wine in addition, when I know that she comes home later from work. Dinner. Only lit a candle or 2 or 3 times. That's the thing. Nostalgia, man. I wish I could take my daughter, because we have the most humane court in the world. Mother's daughter will be awarded. Dear listeners, thank you in advance for the likes and subscriptions. And now I would like to say a few words about the first story. On the second story, in principle, everything is clear. But on the first one, to be honest, not so much. I had a number of questions when I first read it. There are some obvious inconsistencies, or the author just did not say something or embellished. Here, for example, about the woman who comes to the apartment of a factory worker who gets 10,000 or whatever he said. Yes, 10. Do you have any idea what kind of apartment that is? And who normal would go there? Of course, yes, with his beloved Ray of Shalash, but shit. We know what we're talking about now, right? Second, further in the story, there is a man going into a career. He gets everything going. He earns 100 to 120,000 rubles. It's super great to be able to do that. But then he tells me that his wife never worked. And why? And because there was no such need. Somehow there was no need, as the author writes. I mean, you didn't have to. You lived in some shack for a year and a half, and she was fine with it. And what did you eat? I do not understand. This couple you have, to be honest, some mythical couple or a couple that are worth each other, don't you think? What do you think about that? Give a couple of your comments, would be interesting to read. Is paradise with your lover in the Shalash possible, you know? Well then, probably the last such discrepancy I remember is in the sense of finding men's underwear at home. Well then, I'll turn to you now. We're all there in our youth, or more than that. Been to visit the lovely ladies, haven't we? Tell me, have any of you ever left the house without wearing underwear? I mean, how's that? Has it ever been normal for you to walk down the street without your underwear on? What kind of joke is that? I understand it's more common in women, or something. But I would never believe that a man can just stupidly forget to put on underwear. Especially when he's not at home. There are so many of those things. Are there so many of them? So many that you can lose some, not notice the loss. I mean, that's crazy. What do you think about that? Am I right, or am I wrong, or am I missing something?